Know your alcohol. Do you know how much alcohol you're drinking? Have you added it up, worked it out, gone through it in your head, worked out the physical costs, the mental costs, the financial costs, the emotional costs? Know your alcohol. And for those of you watching on YouTube, let's find out. Okay, this is something that I'm talking about today because here we are now in February in the UK, and people are still drinking excess amounts of alcohol as if it's still Christmas, which was last year, best part of 2 months ago. Know your alcohol. Well, do you know how much alcohol you're drinking? Okay, now as a professional personal trainer, during the consultation phase, when someone comes to see me with regards to a health questionnaire, a fitness questionnaire, medical history, pharmaceuticals, there's always a question on there, so halfway down the sheet, with regards to their, do they drink alcohol or not? And of course, there's a 1 in 2 chance, it's only yes or no, that they do. And I suspect it's higher than 50%. It's probably somewhere between 60 and 70% that clients over the age of 18, certainly over the age of 21, drink alcohol. Now, how much alcohol they drink is another subject, because I doubt very much, similar to gamblers, that someone who drinks alcohol on a regular basis tracks it. They're not getting up on the 1st of January and keeping a diary or a log on a piece of paper or on their phone for exactly how many units of alcohol that he or she has drunk in the year, respectively. So think about it, it's 12 months, 52 weeks, 365 days. No one that I've met in over 17 years of working in sports massage therapy and personal training have I met that's someone who's tracked their alcohol intake for a year. And understandably, 1, because you don't want to know, why would you? And 2, it's boring, yeah, whereas drinking alcohol and having a drink and getting excited and inebriated isn't. All right, now when we talk about when I touch on the subject of the units, let's have a look. Okay, units of alcohol. I've got here, I've already proven it out on my board here. Let's talk about what constitutes a unit of alcohol. Now, bearing in mind, a unit of alcohol can actually differ from one country to another, because a unit is measured by, no pun intended, and gauged and recommended by different governments, health and safety, World Health Organizations in different parts of the country. But we're just talking about the UK and the USA. Units of alcohol: 8 milligrams or 10 milliliters of pure alcohol, ethanol, equals half a pint of beer or lager. So for those of you that drink beer or lager, I'm sure they taste nice, you're drinking a unit of alcohol, and that would come under the reading of 8 milligrams or 10 milliliters. And again, that's pure alcohol, ethanol, or equal to 25 milliliters of vodka, whiskey, or gin. All right? Or that's 50 milliliters of wine, port, or sherry. So you've got your beers, your lagers, your spirits, vodka, whiskey, gin, and then of course your wine or your strengthened, fortified wines, something such as wine, port, or sherry. Now, when we talk about measuring alcohol, it's not often, unless you work behind a bar or you work in a brewery or you work in a pub or a restaurant, that you measure your alcohol. You don't sit there and take that glass or that cup or that lager jug or anything like that and measure it out. You pour it up and you fill it up. If it's a gin or whiskey glass, you might put what you consider to be a shot in. So we've got to think about that habit, the habit which is formed by drinking alcohol. Now remember, you will read reports on a daily basis that a form of alcohol can be beneficial for you. And I think anyone who suggests that you start drinking alcohol as a way of getting better is grossly incorrect at best, and possibly, unless they work in a pub, bar, or restaurant, it's incumbent upon them to sell you alcohol. Other than that, it's almost a form of conscious or subconscious malevolence. Yeah. So if you don't drink alcohol now for physical reasons, mental reasons, health reasons, you don't like the taste, you don't like the look or the smell of it, or for cultural or religious reasons, I strongly suggest you never take it up. Yeah. Don't ever be guided or hoodwinked by anyone into drinking more alcohol is good for you. It can't be. It's a poison, it's a toxin. It becomes a toxin when it's essentially you've got fermented, vegetables and fruits that are then fermented and processed with germs, micro germs as well. You know, you're not eating, you know, a banana or a grape when it says fermented fruits or vegetables. You're not eating, you know, an avocado or some broccoli. You're essentially drinking the fermentation of fruits and vegetables mixed with germs that are then purified to some degree and then is sold to you or I. Now, just to be clear, I like the taste of some alcohol. You know, I enjoy a pint of Guinness in winter. I'll enjoy a gin and tonic in summer. I might enjoy a glass of bubbly or champagne, whatever you call it, to celebrate something once or twice a year. But I can go 3-6 months without touching a drop, and I don't miss it. When I have a glass or two, I'll enjoy it. And I never drink in the house on my own. I think that would be a slippery slope. And the way I get around that, I don't have alcohol in my house 99 times out of 100. As a matter of fact, I've got a bottle of red wine in my house, but I don't drink wine. I just add it to beef mince when I'm making a spaghetti bolognese or something like that. But other than that, no. As much as I might like the taste of certain drinks, I know that it can't be good for you. Alcohol is also classed, again, ethanol, but put inside a nice drink, is also classed as a depressant. It's not I wouldn't call it an antidepressant, you know, because you could drink alcohol to subdue your mindset, to sort of drink away the pain. You may suffer from a form of depression, but that has to be diagnosed by a psychiatric doctor or a clinical psychiatrist, or maybe even a psychologist. But I would go to a GP or a psychiatric doctor first to actually understand if you're suffering from depression. Don't self-diagnose. Yeah, having a bad day at work or a bad day on the road or a bad day in the home doesn't mean you suffer from depression. Depression is something that starts off as acute and then eventually becomes chronic. So you need to go and see your specialist on that. But drinking alcohol to get you through a state of depression is actually compounding your issue. It's compounding your mental issue, your emotional issue, you know, your psychiatric issue, and your health. Yeah. The alcohol is absorbed into your bloodstream. Yeah, alcohol goes into your mouth, it's absorbed into your bloodstream, and then thereafter, excuse me, it's then deposited into your organs. Yeah, even up to the brain as well. So you think about it, you're putting a poison of some description. Yeah, gin. You know, some people call gin mother's ruin. If you do your research, there's probably a good reason why. But you're taking something that is classed as a toxin or a poison, yep, and putting it into your bloodstream, which is then deposited into your organs, your liver, your pancreas, you know, all the way up to your brain. And therefore, anything like that is going to actually slow down your ability to think, you know, to think straight, to act straight, to stand on one foot if you need to. And bear in mind as well, the full effects of alcohol on the brain and the nervous system and on your organs takes longer than we feel. We feel like we've got a quick buzz, that kind of that good feeling when you've had your first drink. But your organs won't actually really register it until up to an hour later, and in which time you may have had 3 or 4 more drinks. Like food, if you have your dinner and then you have starters and a main course and dessert, you might have finished the dessert, that second or third course if you go to a restaurant, before your body's ability to register all those calories actually kicks in properly. That's why you should always have a break between your dinner and your dessert. Or if you have a large meal, you should go for a walk. Give your body time to register that it's full or near full. Alcohol has the same, if not even a worse effect, because they're empty calories. At least with food, it's actually calories which your body's got to digest, you know, using the digestive tract as well. So think about it. If you go out and have a drink, it might be an idea, if you can have an alcohol drink, to have a glass of water in between. You know, I wouldn't jump to drinking fizzy drinks like Orangeade and fizzy drinks and Coke and Orange, because that can actually speed up, you know, the process of the sugars in those drinks can speed up the alcohol effect as well. So I suggest you have a glass of water in between, or at least food. Food can slow down the effects of alcohol on the body and the liver and the brain, but it doesn't stop it, it just slows it down. Yeah. Now, I'm just going to actually take here, when I studied to be a personal trainer, we spent some time studying alcohol as well. And it's a long time ago, but I've learned a lot more about alcohol since I've been qualified, which was in 2008. It's a long time ago. I'm just going to mention here about things to take into account if you are thinking or of the mindset that you may have some form of alcohol dependence. Now, it can vary from one person to another. It can vary from man to woman, the size of your body, the weight of your body, what you do as a profession or a living, your lifestyle, how much food you eat, how much food you don't eat, whether you take pharmaceuticals or narcotics. There are so many variables to factor in to try and understand or make an educated guess at first, and then a educated diagnosis from a professional if you have alcohol dependency. Some may call it being an alcoholic. I would class it as alcohol dependency first. All right. These are some signs that you may have alcohol dependency. Okay. Have you ever thought you should cut down on your drinking? Have other people annoyed you by commenting on your drinking? Do you ever feel guilty about the amount of alcohol you take? Have you ever taken a drink in the morning to relieve the symptoms of alcohol, commonly known in the UK, and I think the USA as well, as a hair of the dog or an eye opener? All right. You find it hard to stop drinking once you've started. All right. Alcohol takes priority over other activities. Yep. You've been in trouble with the police or law enforcement through antisocial behaviour or even drink driving. You spend money on alcohol at the expense of other important things. Example, your family, your home, good nutrition and health. There's a disharmony in your family that you could possibly link towards alcohol consumption. You turn up late for appointments of any description, formal or informal, due to the amount of alcohol in your body from the previous night's drinking. You need more alcohol. You need to increase your alcohol uptake to feel the effects that you once felt when you first started. Okay. Other people comment on your behaviour during or after your consumption of alcohol. You get angry with these people when they make comments. You feel the need to once in a while drink in the morning before midday. You start to become impatient or irritable after lunchtime, usually before the evening when you've got home from work, before you have a drink. Now, those are a lot of them aren't just the physiological, a lot of those there are the emotional and the social aspects of your alcohol consumption. Okay, that is separately because you don't know what's happening to your heart, myocardiopathy. You've got to think about it. The heart is a muscle and you are damaging your heart, this muscle that has to actually work from the moment we're conceived, actually when we're in the mother's womb, all the way to our last day on the earth. From cradle to the grave, the heart has to work. It has to pump non-stop. Yeah. That muscle is going to be damaged with constant or excess alcohol. And I said constant first because excess alcohol could be 5 or 6 pints for a man or woman. That is excess alcohol. But constant alcohol could be one small drink a day, a bottle of beer, 1 unit. But if you've got to do that 6-7 days a week, 51, 52 weeks a year, think what that looks like between the age of, say, 18 and 70. Yeah? You might have a glass of wine or a glass of beer with every single meal, every single day, unless you're unwell, you're bedridden with flu. Yeah, in which case you're not going to drink alcohol. I hope not anyhow. Unless, of course, you're alcohol dependent or you're an alcoholic. I would suggest you take your alcohol consumption into account and write it down. Make a note of how many days, weeks, months you could go without drinking alcohol. You could try by cutting down to start with. You could try by drinking alcohol zero, those no alcohol looking drinks, okay? And some of them do actually taste okay. They don't all taste like diesel, or industrial fluid. That's why these brewery companies, they spend hundreds of millions of dollars or pounds on almost perfecting zero alcohol looking drinks because it's big business for them. Yeah. And in the advent of people nowadays, especially youngsters, really getting into the health and fitness lifestyle craze, trend, whatever you call it, It's my opinion that these manufacturers are really working on those drinks, the alcohol zero drinks. So you still buy their product, yeah? You still buy their product, yeah. Okay, try that. Try giving yourself a distraction. Fitness, exercise, walking, baking, cooking, learning a skill, or even removing yourself from the environment where you would ordinarily drink. And the first thing to do is don't have it in your house. Yeah, the habit of doing a weekly food shop and while you're there buying booze, or even worse, having it delivered to your door, that habit will creep up on you. It will creep up on your health and your mindset. And if you're married or you're cohabiting with your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your husband, your wife, what can happen is where you start together, but one of the two of you may decide to cut down on the alcohol intake because he or she is noticing that they're looking bad, they're feeling bad, they don't want it all the time, they want to enjoy it as a treat, as a social reason. Now, that doesn't mean that the other party in the house is going to actually stop either. It's very hard to stop or slow someone down from a long-formed habit, especially when this long-formed habit has a dulling effect on the stresses of life. Remember, alcohol is a depressant. Don't drink it if you are depressed. It's just going to compound the issue. Don't look at alcohol as an antidepressant. It won't make your state of your physiological state, your emotional state better by numbing you for that night or that weekend. Because the problem you've got is still there come Monday when you go to work, or it's still there come Saturday morning when you've got to get up and walk the dog and feed the kids and do the food shop. So if you're spending Friday nights getting inebriated, the problems you've got, and whichever problems you've got at home, at work, out on the road even, they are still there come Saturday morning. If you spend Sunday night drinking and numbing the thought or the pain of thinking about going to work Monday, you've still got those problems at work, with your boss, with your colleague, with your accounts. You've still got that problem on Monday. The alcohol intake doesn't make it go away. It's not an antidepressant, it's a depressant. I'm not trying to be a killjoy here. One of the things I like to actually work with my clients is to find out what he or she can do to slow down alcohol dependency, to stop it dead in its tracks. It could have a detrimental effect, at least in the first 3 or 4 weeks. And again, that's something to really consider. So if you drink, men up to 21 units a week, remember we looked at the units earlier on, cut that down to half for week 1 to week 4. Week 5 to 8, cut it down to a quarter, where you're having 2 or 3 drinks a week. I wouldn't suggest you go cold turkey because you don't know how the body and the brain are going to react. You could be ill, unwell, like someone who drinks excess amounts of caffeine. Last September, I cut my caffeine intake down by 40-50%. I was drinking 2 or 3 a day. I went down to 2, now I'm down to 1 a day. And the way I did it was have my normal cup of coffee first thing in the morning between 6 a.m. and 7 a.m. And thereafter, if I have a cup of coffee throughout the day, I have decaf. And I think maybe since September, maybe half a dozen times, I've drunk a normal coffee a second time round throughout the day. And that's if I've got a really physically demanding day. But generally, it has worked. The first couple of weeks, I was slurring my words by midday or 3 p.m. And then it started to go off and improve my sleep patterns as well. And bearing in mind, I'm not, a sedentary office worker or a school teacher where a lot of those employees drink 6, 7, 8 cups of coffee a day. I was only on 2 at a push 3. Now I'm down to 1. I tried decaf and it does work. It looks like coffee, smells like coffee, tastes like coffee within reason, but you're not pushing caffeine into your body. All I'm doing really is having some hot water. All right. Okay, so when you go and see your personal trainer, when you go and see your physical therapist or your mental health specialist, your psychologist or your psychiatric doctor, one thing I would say, you as the client or the patient, factor in, if your mental health counsellor or your psychologist or your psychiatric doctor is visibly overweight and unhealthy, feel free to ask them, does he or does she drink? Because if you've got someone who professes to be able to help you with all of their knowledge and experience and wise world around them, if they drink alcohol and they are unhealthily overweight, by my opinion, that is not the person that you should be seeking counsel for. Not only do they drink alcohol, yeah, they drink so much alcohol, yeah, feel free to ask them. If someone was to ask me, when they come to see me for a consultation, Tristan, do you drink alcohol? I'll say, yeah, once a month, once every 3 or 4 months even. Again, I can go 3 to 6 months without a drop. I'll have a couple in summer, a couple in winter, and a few throughout the year, and enjoy it, enjoy the taste. But other than that, the answer is no. I've built a self-discipline to not become reliant on it, even though, like you watching or listening, I like the taste. All right, so be clear. Understand who you're actually talking to, who you're explaining your health questionnaire, your medical questionnaire, your alcohol dependency. Yeah, the same way. If you go to AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, there'll be people there that are still classed as alcoholics, even though he or she has gone through a program to get them off it. They might not have had a drink for up to a year, and they can still class themselves as alcoholics or alcohol dependent, because they know one drink, bang, and they're back on the wagon. Yeah. So to actually say that you're not an alcoholic because you've abstained from alcohol for 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks after a lifetime of drinking is not correct. Yeah. Alcoholic isn't the amount of alcohol you drink. It's not just based on the units that you put into your body. That would be way too easy, because John or Dave could stop drinking 21 units a week and go down to 20 and class themselves, I'm not an alcoholic now. They could go down to 15 drinks a week and say, I'm not an alcoholic because, the World Health Organization says I can drink 21. That's not correct. An alcoholic, my thoughts are, should be defined by someone that either won't or can't stop drinking, or if he or she has stopped drinking, they know even the sight of a bottle of wine, a glass of port, a beer, a lager, a whiskey is going to start them off again. So that technically they could still be alcoholics even after a cessation of some description. All right, so know when you come to see your trainer, that's something we're going to cover. It can be uncomfortable, yeah, but I try to get the uncomfortable discussions out of the way during the consultation phase, at best. At worst, with the post-care advice and summary that I'll send across to you, and then ideally, whilst we're training, okay, to build better habits, okay, not to judge, yeah, but to work with and help to the best of my ability. That's it. So put the glass down today, wait till next week or wait till next month. Have one in spring to usher in the good weather. My name's Tristan Lowe, the channel's Health No Filter. I'm on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music, all the Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever you want to call it. Until the next one, thanks for watching, thanks for listening. Look after your health and your heart. Bye for now.